Salutations and welcome, friends, to another Kentucky Oaks Spotlight video. My name is Matthew DeSantis. I'm joined by Trust the Profits contributor Michael Pellerin as we talk about the 2022 Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies champion Wonder Wheel and her chances in the 2023 Kentucky Oaks. Michael, how are you doing today? And are you excited to talk about Wonder Wheel?
I'm doing great. I'm always excited to talk about a horse that I think is going to take some money and a horse that I'm absolutely against. So hopefully I can give it some other people to not listen to me and to bet this horse so we can get a price somewhere else.
I love it. I love it. I think you and I might be on the same page with this particular filly. But before we get into Wonder Wheel, just a reminder, press that subscribe button here to follow all the content we have on Trust the Profits, whether it's the Kentucky Derby, the Kentucky Oaks, whether it's graded stakes previews, capping the card, doubling down, live betting on Thursday nights. We got you covered with every type of horse racing content that you're looking for. Make sure to like this video and let us know why we should be falling over ourselves to run to the betting window to bet on Wonder Wheel to win this race, or why we should be doing what I think we both are going to be doing, which is fading the heck out of this horse. But let's dive into Wonder Wheel, who, of course, pictured there, very famous win with Tyler Gaffleone, gets the win aboard her in the 2022 Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. But she is a filly who I am kind of against, and I'm just not sure she's really taken the step forward. You can see this is the Mark Cassidy horse. Like I said, Tyler aboard with that Into Mischief pedigree up top. You have a little bit of a Tiz Now influence underneath with Wonder Gal, and having Tiz Now as her two-time sire to back. So interested, Michael, kind of what are your thoughts on Wonder Wheel, and maybe what are your thoughts on how do you approach a horse who was a dominant 2-year-old who may not have been quite as good as a 3-year-old?
Yeah, so I mean, Wonder Wheel was great last year, and her Breeders' Cup Juvenile was super impressive, especially after the Alcibiades win. But looking back at that replay, I think it was more of a jockey win than it was a horse win.
Mm-hmm.
Tyler Gaffleone's one of the best jockeys in the country right now, and especially in Kentucky at Keeneland. So he had experience at the Alcibiades. So running back on that track a few weeks later in the Breeders' Cup, you watch that replay, she's kind of in the back of the pack, trapped by the rail. All of a sudden, he sees an opening and he just takes it. Ground-saving rail trip, swings it out through traffic and powers home. I think that was just a really credit to his skill as a jockey and his experience on the track that he was able to win that day, and less about Wonder Wheel's inherent talent. I think she's great. And if you, on the previous slide, if you had just stuck it there, Mark Cassidy, Tyler Gaffleone, Into Mischief, like that's everything you want from a filly in Kentucky. But then looking at what she's done this year, she's not really living up to that potential. And I think we've definitely seen what happens to every single Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner. They kind of plateau out.
Yeah, it is. It's one of those things where I think I always caution people about getting too excited about a 2-year-old. These horses mature at different rates, and some horses are naturally precocious. Some horses just physically develop a lot faster, and you can see it if you go to the track. You can see it in the paddock. I mean, some of those 2-year-old races, you kind of look at these horses walking by, they shouldn't even be running against each other. When you see one of them who's, muscled up already, coat shining and just looking like $1 million, and the other one's kind of gangly, it's all legs, and you just go, that horse is going to need some more time to fill out in a lot of instances, and might be better as a 3-year-old, 4-year-old. Wonder Wheel, yeah, obviously 4 for 5 winning as a 2-year-old. The only time she didn't win was the second place in the Grade 1 Spinaway. Obviously super talented, but came back in that Suncoast, and I was really looking for a big effort that day. That was the same race that Nest kind of announced herself last year in that Suncoast as being a really dominant filly in that 3-year-old division for the Oaks. And it just, I know it was a speed favoring track that day, but Dreaming of Snow, really, like that's the horse that we're gonna let beat her at almost 40-1 on the morning line. Then she comes back, and then there were rumors. Oh, she wasn't all the way cranked up for that race. She'll be better in the Ashland. What does she do? She finishes, I believe, dead last in the Ashland. And I just can't really get excited. But she's accumulated so many points for the Kentucky Oaks through that win of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies that she's going to draw into this field. And so it just happened this week, actually, because of Sheeta Booty, the Chad Brown horse, dropping out. So Wonder Wheel draws in, and yeah, I'm not sure if she's able to take another step forward or not? Because in my eyes, and watching some of those race replays, the trip was there. She just wasn't able to execute.
Yeah, and that's one thing that's positive about her is she does have a versatile running style. That Alcibiades last year, she went gate to wire, was first all the way around, so she has the ability to be on the lead. We talked about in the Breeders' Cup that she was near the back of the pack, was able to make a big move down the stretch and power home. So she's got versatility. So no matter what the race looks like, she doesn't really have an excuse because she's shown that versatility in her previous races. Unlike someone like Wet Paint, who has been a pure closer in every single one of her big wins, and you can say if there's a soft pace, she kind of has an excuse. Wonder Wheel doesn't have that same built-in excuse, and like you said, that Ashland set up perfect. She was not far back. She kind of was sitting in fourth or fifth place. It was all just one big cluster, and if she wanted to make a move, she definitely could have done it, but was just completely empty, and it did not show any kind of future for performance in the Oaks going forward from there.
Yeah, it was a puzzling performance, and one that even Mark Cassey was puzzled by. Honestly, afterwards, when they asked him about it, he kind of didn't have a lot of excuses, and he kind of shrugged his shoulders a little bit and just wasn't really sure why she didn't execute the way that she did. One of the reasons why I've been kind of out on Wonder Wheel a little bit during this 3-year-old campaign, why I was kind of a strong play against her in the Ashland that day, was when you go back and look at both the Alcibiades and the Juvenile Fillies, and you look at who she beat and what they've come back to do. I mean, it's a big old nothing burger. I mean, they've just that, and that's not a disservice to her. I mean, listen, you can only beat who you're running against. But man, talking about the opposite of a key race. I mean, these Fillies, some of them haven't even run yet since the Juvenile Fillies, and the ones who have not looked particularly good. I think there was only one next out winner out in that entire field. It's just, so when you start looking at that Juvenile Fillies field, you just go, well, who did she really beat? She's got these credentials, but I just don't know what I can really take out of it. And you were, keying me in to look something up before we get started. And why don't you share that really interesting statistic that we saw about Juvenile Filly winners and their success at the Kentucky Oaks?
Yeah, so I was racking my brain. Last year we had Echo Zulu, who came back, did a very good job in the Oaks. But before that, when was the last time the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly winner came back to win the Kentucky Oaks? And we were clicking through every single winner we could find, names you couldn't recognize. Had to go about 25 years to find the last time that a juvenile Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly winner also came back to win the Kentucky Oaks. So we don't see a lot of success translate from the 2-year-old season to the 3-year-old season. And it's something we see with the males as well. Nyquist in 2016 was the last time that the Breeders' Cup Juvenile male winner came back to win the Kentucky Derby. So it's definitely an angle. And as you mentioned, horses mature faster as 2 doesn't mean that necessarily translate into winning consistently at 3.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something to keep in mind, certainly in the Kentucky Derby as well, with Forte being that Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner last year, and now obviously taking that, mantle of probably being the morning line favorite and likely the morning line and post time favorite for the Kentucky Derby, whether he's a potential play against as well. What I'll say about Forte is interesting. He's won both of his races. He's come back as a 3-year-old, but from a speed figure standpoint, he's not necessarily continued to elevate his speed figures. He kind of has been running the same Beyer speed figure the last 3-4 times out. And that might be a little bit of concerning for people in the same sort of a way. Now, he was an excellent 2-year-old, so the rest of that 3-year-old crop still might not be able to catch up to him, but we'll see about that. But I did want to take this moment. I think we both are pretty firmly, playing against Wonder Wheel. I think part of it is she's going to attract a lot of money or more money than she probably should. And so I do want to take a chance to talk about the winner of that Ashland Stakes, who we both liked that day to a more or lesser degree, which was Defining Purpose. This is an intriguing filly who might just have a shot in this Kentucky Oaks to launch kind of another upset at a kind of a big price, I would imagine.
Yeah. So Defining Purpose, I wasn't on her that day. Just looking back, I didn't have too close of a look. I was on someone else. But then once she wins that race, you're like, how did I miss this? You go back and look at the sheets. Her last 2 races were in the mud or the slop. So she finally gets a clean, fast track. And she has a really impressive performance. She has a versatile running style. She wanted to be near the front. So she was able to win that race. And visually, it looked stunning. The Beyer didn't come back very fast, but the Brisnet came back fast. So depending on what speed figure you favor yourself, it could be more intriguing for you from that perspective. So I think out of that race, Defining Purpose over Julia Shining, over Wonder Wheel, that's the one that I'm going to take moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. And you're going to get a much better price on her. I would imagine Wonder Wheel will get bet down pretty significantly. I would imagine the 5-1 area in all likelihood. I think, she's got big name recognition, particularly in Kentucky. People know everything about her. You mentioned the connections you can't beat. Into Mischief, Philly, Mark Cassie, Tyler Gaffleone. That alone is going to get you bet down to a little bit of a lower price. So, well, Michael, thank you so much for joining me on this spotlight video of Wonder Wheel. Make sure to like this video if you've been watching. Comment below with what you think of last year's Juvenile Fillies champion and whether or not you think she's got a shot in this year's Kentucky Oaks. Until next time, friends, my name is Matthew DeSantis. That's Michael Pellerin, wishing you a great and profitable day at the races and reminding you that it's now post time.